Hello and welcome, thank you for stopping by. If this is your first episode watching, then all you need to know is that we make some slow-paced tutorials here and talk about why we do the things we do, and go throughout the whole process together, without time lapses, without skipping anything, fixing problems as they come along. And we are making this chasmosaurus right here. It's not an exact copy of this reference, but we are basing most of our decisions on this reference, since this is our main inspiration. We have a nice skeleton reference here, we have some 3D models from Jurassic World Evolution, a very fun game. And today what we're doing here is merging this front limb to the body, continuing from where we left off last episode, where we did the back limbs. So let's go into it, and I'm gonna select, let me enable the screencast key as well, and I'm gonna select those front limbs. And before I join them, I know that their shape is a bit off. This part here is the shoulder blade we talked about in previous episodes, this long shoulder blade that we see here. And I noticed that the shape is a bit off because this goes inwards a bit and the rest of the lower leg goes outwards, and that doesn't look that great. And also I wanna fix something before we merge them. I wanna maybe, let's see, I'm gonna go to sculpt mode, and I'm going to push this shoulder blade a little bit inwards. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna mask off the lower limb. Let's see, I'm gonna probably use the box mask, yeah. So I'll just mask off this lower limb here, and then with my elastic deform I'm gonna push the shoulder blade inwards a bit. Now I'm doing this mainly because in order to make the transition and sculpt over this, I'm gonna inevitably add some volume to it. And I could subtract from it by sculpting, but that's a bit time consuming, so for now I'm just going to push it inwards a bit. And this of course makes the problem of the legs having a weird angle a bit worse, but that's okay because we're gonna fix this with our sculpting. So I'll just go back to object mode and select them, select the body as well in object mode, and press Ctrl J and join them together. Now back in sculpt mode, I'm going to remesh it. We have this value here which we have used for the entire body shape up till now, and I'm gonna make sure that I have preserve face sets selected as well. I'm gonna hit remesh, and what this does, if I enable this here, is we have some nice separate face sets for the legs, the body, and the front legs as well. And I'll just hide that color because it's a bit distracting. And now what I wanna do is start fixing the shape of it, but actually before that I'm gonna quickly go over it and smooth it with about 500 strength. Now, as I have mentioned a few times before, if you're not very familiar with the smooth brush, then you should be using a lower strength brush and slowly going over it, because the smooth brush, think of it as take away all details brush, which is good in cases like this where you want to take away all the artificial geometry, all those weird edges, but it's not very good if you have some details that you want to keep. So the smooth brush is a bit of a tricky one, you should be careful using it. Now the reason why I remeshed here again is because I noticed some, like this area here, some weird artifacts. So if I remesh again, which I did, you can now smooth them easier without much problem. And when your geometry is quite broken, you can always use the remesher to fix that geometry and kind of relax it a little. Alright, so this is merged quite nicely. So now I'll just go over it and start sculpting a few things. Let's look at our reference and see what's happening. So we see that the legs here seem to be attached to the body. Let's see, about somewhere around this area, I think. Or could be lower, perhaps. Let's look at our 3D models. No, I think this area, where the shoulder blade begins. Alright, so this is where we have already merged it there, so that's good. Alright, so I'll work on the transitions, and we can see that this part fades in quite a lot, which is not the case on our sculpt. So let's fix this real quick, and I'll show you how. As I said before, we can start digging into it by pressing Ctrl and remove some of that volume from it. And let's do it right about here, right about this edge here. Let's sculpt this away. Let's take some of that volume away. There we go. Now what I'm gonna do is, see how almost level this is? I'll just go across it quite lightly, start adding some clay strips with a little bit of an angle. Sometimes I'm not using so much of an angle here, but as I go downwards I'm using a little bit of an angle, a little bit of a curve to my stroke, just so that the flow of it makes a little bit more sense. And I talked about this quite a bit when I was on the previous episode, when I was doing this backline, but I'll just quickly go over it here again in case this is your first episode watching. We try to keep in mind the direction of our creature, the flow of our creature, where the shapes are pointing and what the muscle of it would look like, even though this isn't really a muscle or an anatomy study or an anatomy tutorial, but we try to kind of keep in mind some of that stuff, just so it helps us with our strokes. See, I'm using this type of stroke here, this curved stroke, because the muscles of this creature would be somewhat like this. Or forget the muscles, just the flow of it. See the flow of this shape, it goes like this, so it doesn't really make sense if I sculpt across like this. So I'm just trying to sculpt a bit according to the flow of it, and here I'm just doing it very lightly, and by doing it very lightly it kind of blends everything together into a nice shape. There we go. So this is fading out quite a lot now, and we could keep going over this a few more times to make sure that it's fading nicely. Let's look at the volume of it. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure if I'm happy about the shape of it and the volume of it, but you know what? Let's not worry too much about it. We can always fix this later. This is such an early stage. So I'll just add a bit here and make sure that it's a nice smooth transition between the two shapes. I'll just add a bit more volume. And in fact, you know what? I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna hide this. No, hang on. I'm gonna hide. Yeah, I'm just gonna hide the limbs, and I think I'm gonna add a bit of volume here to the body shape. Add some volume to it. Yeah, without worrying too much about it for now, I'm just going over it and adding some volume, and especially here towards the neck. and in this area. Let's bring back those limbs. Yeah, I think this looks a bit better now. Alright, and I can maybe... maybe pull those shoulders outwards just a tiny bit. There we go. Let's look at it from the front, and I'm gonna hide the head here so it doesn't mess with me. I'll just kind of fix this shape a little. Alright, so I'm gonna keep sculpting this, and I'm gonna keep working on those transitions. Looking at my references from now and then, from time to time. Alright, so we should do something about this chest area here. Let's just add a bit of volume here, like this. And let's perhaps hide the limbs for now, and just add a bit of volume here. And I'm gonna smooth this part out a little, but with a lower strength for my smooth brush, so I'll just go over it a little bit. And then with my clay strips, I'm gonna lightly add on top of it and kind of help this transition out a little. There we go. You do it lightly enough, and it will add a lot of detail. It's gonna blur a lot of that detail. Now I'm gonna remesh to fix this kind of hole here. So I'll just remesh this, and maybe one more time. There we go. Now I'm just going over this area and adding some volume for this chest area of the creature. Because if this is the shoulder blade, we can also see from our skeleton reference the collarbone should be around here somewhere. I think this is it. Yeah, probably. I can't quite... Oh, is this it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a bit hard to tell from those photographs, but yeah, we should have something here. Some sort of bone and muscle. There we go. Let's also add a bit here. I'm gonna smooth this part out and try to get a nice even surface for it. Nice. There we go. Yeah, this looks okay for now. Let's compare to our references again. Yeah, I think for now this is fine. We'll keep adjusting as we go along. Now, remember, these are the early stages, so we don't really worry too much about stuff here. This is just trying to get down some rough basic shapes, some very rough landmarks and low frequency details, which are mainly just the shapes of the creature, basically. Now let's see, I wanna maybe... What do I wanna do here is... Yeah, kind of fix this transition a little and maybe just pull this part a little bit. So I just pulled this a little bit backwards to kind of relax this sharp angle it had here. I'll just smooth some of it out, and yeah, I'm just going here back and forth in this transition and kind of trying to get a bit of a more natural shape to it. I wanna emphasize this part a little bit with some kind of roundness to it. So my brush strokes are according to that, because I wanna have a bit of a round shape here. I'm kind of doing these half circles and adding a bit of round volume to it, and then I'm going back to this kind of flow and merging them together. So this is how you can play with your different shapes. And so we have this kind of spherical shape which merges to this kind of shape, and that's basically the way to do it, or one of the ways to do it. It's not the way to do it, but it's one of the ways you can do it, and I think that works quite well, just playing with your brush strokes like this. Now here I'm just in orthographic and kind of playing with the silhouette of it. I think this might work. Yeah, I think this doesn't look too bad. Let's move down to the lower leg as well. Alright, so I wanna make some volume here to indicate this type of muscle. So I'll just let's see, I'm gonna go down like this, doing this kind of almost a Z kind of brush stroke here, and I'm gonna do it next to it again, and see how it kind of creates this almost cylindrical shape. And now what I'm doing is I let go of the pressure just a little. I relax it as I come towards the end of it, and this helps to kind of transition it and make it a bit smoother, a bit more natural. So I might press a bit harder where I press harder where I want to emphasize it, and I press softer and let it go where I want it to flow in and merge with the surrounding shapes. So it's not just an equal volume of strength and pressure. That's why we use the tablet and the stylus, so we can kind of play with it, play with the volumes, see from soft to hard. And you should, if you're not very familiar with it, take some time to train your muscle memory. Just do this, just very light strokes, and increase the strength gradually or decrease the strength gradually, which is a bit trickier if I might add here, because I find it easier to add strength than remove strength as you go along and keep that flow going. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think it's probably, for most of us, it's probably harder to let go of a strong stroke. Strong stroke. Say that 5 times fast, because I can't. Alright, so I'm just adding a bit of muscle here. Again, I'm not worried at all about the accuracy of it, because the point of it isn't to, of this particular tutorial, isn't to make a completely realistic dinosaur here. It's mostly to give you guys an idea of how you can play with different shapes. And another reason why I'm doing this type of tutorial instead of the much more popular and quite easier to do fast-paced tutorial or a time-lapse is because sometimes it can be a bit misleading if you guys are beginners and you're seeing someone, a YouTuber or another artist, just doing a time-lapse or making a fast-paced tutorial and just blasting through it and, you know, blazing through it, and just doesn't really show you the struggle of it or all the steps that are required, and that can be somewhat intimidating when you start doing it yourself, because you see that you can't do it that fast, or that you can't get the same result, and that can be demoralizing. So I think that if you kind of see the entire process step by step, and how it might be complicated as a whole, but if you break it down in simple steps and simple strokes, it kind of becomes much easier to do, because doing this kind of pattern here, I think it's much more simple than making an entire dinosaur in just a few hours. So this is why we are in this together. We are just going slowly together, and yeah, just trying to show you some simple steps that you can not necessarily follow, but take to your sculpts and just adapt them there, because the techniques can be transferred from whatever it is you're making. There we go. So now what I was doing here, just following the same principle as here, I'm just adding a bit of volume and different shapes to this creature. And just by being a little bit mindful of where I'm sculpting and where I'm putting pressure and where I'm letting go of pressure, I can just create different definitions for it. Are they accurate? Probably not, but it works. It gives it some definition. And you can use the same technique to make accurate definitions of muscles. Alright, so now I'm just looking at the silhouette of it, and I think it looks okay, surprisingly enough. Might be still a little bit weird here, so let's see. I can pull the lower leg inwards a bit, or I can pull the shoulder blade and upper front of the body outwards a bit, but which one would be a better choice, I'm not sure. I think, let's look at the references. Yeah, it certainly is wider on the top and kind of becomes a little bit narrower as it goes down, so I want to make sure that's the case here. And let's hide the back limbs again, just so they don't confuse me at the moment. And yeah, I'll just kind of fix this. I'm gonna show you, actually I'm gonna show you now, I'm gonna show you a quite easy technique to get some nice flat shapes for your legs, for your feet here. And in just a second, I'm just gonna pull this inwards just a little bit. Now I'm using the elastic deform because it affects the surrounding area, and I think it makes life a bit easier, so you can make some bigger adjustments somewhat faster. Let's unhide this, and yeah, I think this silhouette works a little bit better. Yeah. Alright, so because we're not gonna do the toes and the feet, we're not gonna do them in this episode, and for the next episode we're gonna focus on the head, which is gonna be a really interesting one and a very important one, because all the magic happens at the face. See all the interesting features, see how amazing this looks. All of it happens on the face, so, and how cute this particular one looks. It kind of looks like it's smiling, which is why I chose to have this as a main inspiration. We'll try to make this kind of stuff happen. Yeah, the face is so interesting, and I really like the dragon or reptile dinosaur kind of face. It has very interesting features. Yeah, but because we're gonna focus on the head for the next episode, and we're gonna do the feet and the toes later on, probably after the head. I want to show you just quickly a nice little way you can get some flat shapes for your feet here. Now you might already be thinking that you can kind of perhaps have a cube or a plane and scale it down on the z-axis, scale it along on the y, bring it, oops, don't hide it, but bring it down about here, and just do a boolean operation, and it will cut off everything and just leave you with a flat shape, which is fine, but it's a few steps extra, and it does take us out of sculpt mode, which I try to avoid doing. So I want to do everything in sculpting if I can. So here's a very simple way you can flatten those shapes. First of all, I'm just gonna, because I have them, see if we look closely, I have that curve here. I just want to make sure that I pull them a little bit down here, have this shape here. There we go. I'll just pull this downwards a bit too, and there we go. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select box mask, I'm gonna left click and drag around here, and this has masked off this tiny area here. Now what we're gonna do is come over here to mask, and we're gonna do mask slice and fill holes, and look at that. Look how simple this is. Now make sure that you hide you press Alt M to remove that mask, and this has created this flat surface. We can just remess it now, and look at that. We can start working on this by, let's say for example, I wanna lightly smooth it out just a little bit, and then can start adding a bit to it. There we go, and just playing around with it. Alright, so what we've done here is we've merged all the rough shapes, the limbs to the body, and all that's left is the head, which we're gonna merge. Actually, before we merge it, we're gonna work on it, we're gonna sculpt it on the next episode, and then we're gonna merge it to the body and start refining this very low quality, low resolution base shape. So with that said, I wanna thank you all for being here, my friends. I hope that you learned something, I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and that you join me along for the next one, and you grab your tablet and your stylus and sculpt along with me and have a bit of fun with sculpting. I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye bye now.